Something feels off at the grocery store right now. The prices are high, but not high enough to explain what's coming. That's what many people are missing. What you're paying today is not the full impact yet. There's a delay in the system. That delay is about to end. Some families are already noticing small changes. $10 here, $20 there. Nothing dramatic. Until it is. There's a specific moment this summer that connects to all of it. Most people won't see it coming. Once you see it, you'll understand why your grocery bill changes quickly. This is the part almost nobody explains clearly. When costs rise in the system, they don't hit you right away. They move slowly. Importers, manufacturers, retailers, each one absorbs some of it for as long as they can. Last year, many companies held the line. They took the hit instead of passing it on, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. But that buffer is running out now. Once it fades, the increase doesn't come gradually. It hits all at once, across many items. A woman in Arizona mentioned that her grocery bill didn't spike overnight. It just started drifting. Same cart, same routine. But every couple of weeks, the total was just a little higher. That's what the beginning looks like. What's triggering the next phase isn't random. It's linked to a decision happening this summer. There's an agreement most people have heard of, but rarely think about at the grocery store. It quietly controls a large part of what's on your shelves, and it's under review now. Here's why that matters. Much of the fresh food in the U.S. doesn't actually come from here. A lot of it comes from just across the border. Produce you see each week, tomatoes, avocados, peppers, limes, they've remained stable because of how trade is structured. But that structure isn't guaranteed to last. When uncertainty arises, the shift doesn't wait for the final decision. It starts earlier. Farmers plant less. Importers hesitate. Suppliers slow down. So by the time shoppers notice, the chain reaction is already underway. Someone working with produce distributors said the first signal isn't price, it's availability. You start seeing gaps, fewer options. Then, prices adjust to match what's left. While that builds in the background, there's one category where the shift is already noticeable, and it's not slowing down. If you've been in the meat aisle recently, you've probably felt it. Not just the price, that hesitation. Like, wait, is this normal now? This isn't about a single policy. It's supply. The number of cattle in the U.S. is at levels we haven't seen in decades, and it doesn't bounce back quickly. So even without anything changing, prices continue to rise. Families aren't reacting all at once. They're adjusting quietly. One week it's still beef. The next week, maybe less. Then perhaps something else entirely. A father mentioned he stood there for 5 minutes, just deciding what protein made sense. Not what he preferred, but what made sense. That shift is when behavior starts to change. This is where many people misread the situation. They focus on the big items, missing the daily ones. Some of the clearest signals have already passed most people by. Coffee is a perfect example. It didn't spike all at once. It just kept rising, slow enough to ignore until suddenly it wasn't. The same pattern is visible in other products, items you buy automatically, ones you don't rethink. That's where changes settle in easily. Because habits don't readjust immediately, a woman tracking her grocery spending said it wasn't one item that stood out. It was how many of them quietly moved together. 3 items up, then 5, then most of her regular list. That's when it stopped feeling random and began to feel like something was shifting underneath everything. Here's what most people are still underestimating. The numbers you see right now are the early version. When companies can't absorb costs anymore, they don't just raise one price, they adjust across the board. And they tend to do it around the same time. That's why it feels sudden, not because it just started, but because it finally reached you. For a while, companies absorbed a lot of that pressure, protecting the shelf price. But that protection doesn't last forever. Once it fades, you're no longer seeing buffered prices. You're seeing the true prices. Some estimates suggest the average household could notice a significant monthly increase. Not all at once, but quickly enough to feel it. That's usually when people react. But some families don't wait for that moment. They adjust earlier, quietly. Not dramatically, just differently. They start paying attention to which items change first, the ones that shift without notice. And they make small changes early. Nothing extreme, just enough to reduce exposure. Sometimes it's buying certain items a little early. Sometimes it's switching where they buy them. Sometimes it's simply being less automatic. One family reported they didn't cut anything out. They just stopped assuming everything would stay the same. That alone changed their total more than they expected. Because most of the difference doesn't come from one big decision. It comes from small choices made before everyone else makes them. This is the part that really matters. What's happening right now doesn't feel dramatic yet. That's why it's easy to overlook. But the system behind your grocery bill is already at work. Some of the pressure hasn't reached you yet. Some has already arrived. And some depends on decisions that haven't fully played out. The difference between families who feel it the most and those who stay ahead isn't income. It's timing. Seeing it early enough to make small adjustments while it's still easy to do. Because once it fully shows up at the register, most people are reacting, not preparing. By then, the flexibility is gone.